perspective of they're looked at as the conservatives are anti everything and they just want a right. They just want the right to say derogatory stuff, right? They just want a right to be offensive. And it's kind of like, well, like what was mentioned before, is like, if you're going to have an opinion, you risk being offensive. Like, that's the reality. So you're saying that a person's not allowed to have an opinion. And now we get into a very dangerous place. Let's see, what was the question? How do you think wrongful termination will play out in that case?
Oh man,
that's such a slippery slope. I mean, that's the problem. I mean, so that therein lies the issue. Like, how do you? I mean, is there any way to really tip the scales of justice if justice is based solely on what the standings of the day are? You know what I mean? Like, what the feelings of the day are. There is no scale of justice, because like that becomes a question. Let's see.
Fall under the DE&I umbrella, but since the state of Florida is getting rid of that, like, what's next? I'm not familiar with the DE&I. Can you?
Diversity, so it's diversity, equity, and inclusion. So DeSantis has made some moves recently, basically getting rid of all of that. Like, it's like all the diversity, equity, inclusion stuff, all of the POC rooms, like, the rooms that have, color specific minority rooms, all of the diversity, equity, inclusion spaces. Like, he's been making moves recently to get rid of all of that. And I think from there's two sides of this. On one end, obviously, people are like, "Oh, he's a racist." I mean, he's a racist, and he's anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ, and that's where that first layer of initial response is. Clearly, he's a racist. Clearly, he's anti-everybody. On the flip side, you have those who look at it from a perspective of, why do we need those rooms in the first place? We should all just be Americans. Why can't we just not be identified and separated by our race, community, all of the other, LGBTQ and all that falls under diversity, equity, and inclusion. Yeah, I mean, all of that is being lumped into the same bag. And so DeSantis is basically saying, we get rid of the bag and you're just going to be a human being, and there is no special treatment, there's no special places, there's no special rooms, there's no special none of that. And then some people look at it that could be psychologically damaging for those who are in a position where they feel like, well, I don't have a safe space for what I feel and what I identify as. And so there's so much, and I think because our society is so ideologically charged right now, it's so hard to navigate, because now you're in a place where, if you even, like, remember we talked about this last week, Alex, where, you had the room where you had the girl stand up and say, because the white people were in the multicultural room, they felt uncomfortable. And it's like, but they're not even doing it. They're not even talking. And you're arguing that, like, white people don't have culture. Well, they do have culture. And so now, how do you even identify who has a right to be in a diversity, equity, inclusion room? And diversity means including those people who you don't think are diverse. Like, diversity is everybody. So, there's so many different lines going back and forth about what quantifies what. And so go ahead, what did you say?
So yeah, man. I mean, you're making a great point. What they're doing in Florida, I kind of agree with. I think at a certain point we need to stop separating everybody on their own, because isn't that going backwards? We already came from the civil rights movement where everybody was forced to be separate, right? And then they forced everybody to, and we went through the civil rights. We went through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s.
I lost you. We lost you for a minute.
So we've already done the whole separate everybody by color, by religion, by gender and everything. Like, all these different groups have worked really, really hard over the years for equality. Women, black people, fucking other minorities in the United States have worked really hard to get to the point of where everyone was equal. And now all of a sudden we're divulging into safe spaces, which is basically just a nice way of saying we're going to go ahead and segregate ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think that does anything for society moving forward. what does that do? What does that teach the younger generations of black children and white children? So black children will grow up thinking, well, I shouldn't be around white children because they're scary and they're in my space. And white children grow up saying, well, if black people don't want to be around me, I don't want to be around them. And the same thing for Asian people and Spanish people and everything, all the different races and I hate to use the word race, ethnicities, right? So what is the point? What is the point of having all this stuff? Now, when it was needed, like affirmative action and everything, yes, Asians too, affirmative action and everything was needed, those days have pretty much passed us by. Now we're at an era where, like, affirmative action is like, it doesn't mean just, hey, we're going to help out the people that, the government and society was keeping down. Now we're basically just going to make sure that people get into positions because we need to fill a quota, because we need a gay person, we need a lesbian person, we need we need a trans person, we need a black person and stuff like that. So like, there's so many different angles of why this is not a good idea to have anymore. On the other side, it's going to be weaponized by, DeSantis getting rid of it. You're a racist. You don't care about people. He's like, no, I care about the state of Florida. I don't live in Florida. I live in Louisiana. It's a fucking mess. But, in Florida, you guys got nice roads. That's cool. I like nice roads in Louisiana. So whatever you guys got going for you, I like to have going for me back in my home state. But at the end of the day, we're going to sit here and we're going to separate everybody based on basically essentially feelings nowadays. It used to be race. It used to be religion. It used to be sex, and now we're separating people based on their feelings. So all they want is separation, and the they I use is everybody at the top. I'm always going to talk about the government like that because the easiest way to keep us all upset is upset at each other. If everybody gets upset at the government can't function. If we're upset with each other, we're too busy being mad at each other over religion, skin color, sexual identity and stuff like that. We talk about division all the time, and it's a huge political weapon, and you're going to see it more and more as, we're getting closer to the election cycle. We're getting closer to ramp up for the next presidential election. So the big things that you're going to see hot ticket LGBTQ stuff, hot ticket gun stuff, abortion's absolutely going to pop back up, and we're definitely going to have more racial tensions that are going to be, thrown into our face and told, we can't, this is why everybody hates white people. This is why everybody hates black people. We've got illegal immigrants and Mexicans coming across the border. It's like, or we just have a government that's failing all of us and keeping us focused on each other as opposed to focused on what the real problem is, and that's a government that has overreached, overstepped, it doesn't know what it's doing anymore.
Yeah.
The FBI definitely going to knock on my door today.
Yeah, they don't. I have to agree with that though, man. Like, and this is not something I talk too much about, just because I don't really know the ins and out of it. Like, I don't like talking on topics that I'm not like very informed on. But I do agree, like, the government is definitely very tactful in like using certain topics and like certain situations in order to like turn us against each other, so we can focus on the actual issues at hand. I think the LGBTQ plus like that whole movement is definitely being used in a way that isn't like beneficial for like us as a populace, because like, for you to try to exercise power behind something, but like that movement in itself has so many like genres, like subdivisions in which it's moving in. Like, you can't really exercise power over something that doesn't really have like a solid like movement direction.
Right.
But that's like the problem.
Yeah, so one thing I will add in there is, and I mentioned it earlier, and I kind of go on a little bit more in depth in it. I think that, many of these movements, particularly, like I said, in recent times, obviously we're talking about the, like I said, trans movement and the LGBTQI plus movement. One of the things that I will definitely say is that it does not really serve or help that community when these movements are hijacked and weaponized and politicized and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't even help for real, because all it does is it, either on one side alienates this group as this fringe group, or it puts them in a position to where now they become them versus the world. Then it becomes, now it's agenda versus agenda, ideology. And now for people who really deserve or need some assistance or help, they're not getting it because of the fact that it's become so politicized, because it's become so weaponized, because it's become so propagandized that now the people who, for example, like, you have people now where it's like, I really could help you, but I'm not even going to get involved, because if I do, I get exiled by my group. You know what I'm saying? I could bring, I understand your struggle, but I'm not going to get involved in that conversation because I already know what's going on. If I say one thing, it's the end of my career, and I won't be able to help you anymore. You know what I'm saying? It becomes a situation where the media has made it to where it's like good people support this
Yeah.
and bad people don't. When the reality is like, wait a minute.
Mhm.
One, who are you to say what's good and bad? A. And then B, so you're saying I can support the people, but if I disagree with anything about this movement, I'm a bad person and I have to go away. And you can't even be involved. So even if I wanted to support you in anything, I no longer can because I lose the ability to do so because I am now labeled a villain or an enemy. And even if I come out and say I want to help, but I don't agree with this part, you label me a villain. Now you don't want my help. You reject my help. And then on the flip side, my group and my tribe, they turn around and what do they say? They say, well, you tried to help them. So now you're a villain of exile from us. You see what I'm saying? And so now it's lunacy because we get to this place where nobody can help anybody because we're too busy trying to prove that we're right or we're wrong or we're important or we're not important or you're smart and you got it all figured out or you don't got it figured out or I'm a good person and you're a bad person. And the reality is that, we throw that word fascism around all the time. The reality is there's fascist qualities on both sides. First of all, one of the biggest qualities of fascism or characteristics of fascism is silencing the group that you disagree with. That's one of the biggest things you can see sweeping across the characteristics of a fascist is silencing the people who you disagree with. You know what I'm saying? I see a bunch of comments. Yeah, go ahead, Gilbert.
Yeah, so truly had a really good question. She said, I recently heard that the idea of the feminist movement or the trans movements will abolish one another. One hand, you have the feminists who are fighting the patriarchy, but the other, you have biological, men and women. So, okay. So I see what you're saying, and what you're saying is right. But I think the way that I would say it is I would say that and I typed a little bit of it down there, everything that women have done since the early 1900s, getting out into the workforce, gaining the right to vote, equality, and so on and so forth. Everything that they fought for is being slowly stripped away from them because the trans movement is they want to strip away the actual idea of the difference between a man and a woman. They don't want there to be any differences biologically, which they can't do anything about, there is, but also they want to take away the ability of a woman to be a woman. Same thing when you saw it, I can't remember what news article it was or the interview that I saw, but this woman kept correcting this person. She's like, yeah, pregnant women. She's like, no, pregnant person, birthing people.
Yeah, I saw that.
They want to literally take away the one thing that women can do that no one else can do, and that's give life. And what makes them women, and they want to say that that's not real, and that men can get pregnant. No, we can't. It's just it's not physically possible. Now, when I was a paramedic, when I was still ratting the streets in and out of New Orleans, we would run into our fair share of people that are transitioning. And every now and then you would run into a man transitioning into a woman, and they would say, hey, I'm having my period, and I'm an adult and you're an adult, and I have to sit there as an adult male to another adult male and be like, no, you're not. Like, that's not the way it works. Like, you don't just wake up one day and your testicles shoot up inside your body and you have ovaries and now your body cleans itself once a month. Like, that's just not the way it works. Yeah. So basically I think the trans movement is washing away everything that women have fought for, and the patriarchy, which I think that's a whole different topic for another show. But the patriarchy has nothing to do with keeping women down anymore. Now it's literally other women and the trans movement, because once they strip away what a woman is, then women will no longer have everything that they had fought for. And guess who's still going to have what they fought for? Men. Because
that's a crazy cycle when you look at it. It's like, man, and basically it's like there's a quote that says, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think that so many times what seems to be a good intended idea turns into something that destroys everything. It's unfortunate because I see there are so many people out here in all the communities, whether you're on the conservative side, the liberal side, the LGBTQ side, the trans side, the feminist side, the patriarch, whatever. People are hurting and people are broken and people are trying to find their way, just trying to live the best lives that they can, identify themselves, understand themselves. And yet here we are, you know, like those people are not getting the support, not getting the help that they need or they deserve, because their lives are being ripped apart by all these ideological conversations, all of these agenda, politicized, weaponized propaganda, all of these, you know, it's crazy to me, man. I think, and there's a couple types of people. You have the people who are actively participating in deep in the LGBTQ trans. There's no such thing, and there's no such thing as women or men, all that kind of stuff. The pronouns, there's people who are deep in it, right? Okay, cool. So you have BBL is a button body lift, I think, or boob and body butt lift. Yeah, but you have these people on the far fringes, you could say, of the left that are really heavy into it. Okay, cool. They're in it, boom. But now they're looked at, everything is anti them. And so now it's like, if anybody has any semblance of disagreement with where they are, they're an enemy. Then you have the people who are allied to where I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I'm not going to say that. I'm just going to support you because I don't want to be on the wrong side of history, you know, for lack of better words. Then you have the people in the middle who are like, well, I don't agree with that, but I also don't agree with the anti-side, so I'm just going to not say nothing. I'm going to just be in the middle. You know, I'm going to just keep my head down, handle my business, and whatever happens, happens. Then you have the people, as you start moving to the other side, that are like, well, I don't agree with the more extreme anti-side, but I also don't agree with the direction that we're going. So I'm going to align myself with this side because this side makes a little bit more sense. And then you have the people on the furthest fringes of the other side who are like, it doesn't matter what you say or what you feel, I'm against you in every aspect of your existence. And so what's happening is you're getting two sides of the same coin. You're getting the very same thing on two different spectrums, both looking at each other saying, you're the enemy and you're the enemy, instead of saying, why don't we come together and have a conversation as to why you believe what you believe, why I believe what I believe, and then how can I help you and how can you help me?
Yeah, and I heavily agree. I actually want to piggyback off some of the things you said. I think one of the quotes you brought up was "Have hell is paid for good intentions," and I like to think the whole LGBTQ plus movement is based on good intention. Like, you know, it's a good intention movement. But I also like to think that the reason why, I guess, like, to a lot of people in that movement, disagreements is hate. It's because, you know, they have been hurt. And like, I like to think about this other quote. It's hurt people, you know? So I like to think that, like, a lot of this, a lot of their stances when they get defensive about somebody disagreeing with them, it's just because of hurt, like, you know, past experiences, trauma, all that good stuff. So I do what I'm just saying.
Yeah, and Miles Monroe said something. He said, "You are bound to abuse, but you do not understand." You know, and so what happens is that when you have the further progressive left, liberal-leaning, you know, movement and community, they don't understand how the conservative movement could even think the way they think. And then the conservative movement looks over at the liberal side and says, we don't understand how y'all can think the way you think. And so what happens? You end up fighting. You end up abusing each other. You end up, you know, berating each other. We fear what we do not understand. And so what do? We in turn destroy it. We kill it. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's the Western model. You know what I mean? It's like we kill what we don't understand or like. And so, you know, you're seeing the same psychological setups as we did, and as we talked about this, as Germany, 10 years before the Holocaust. You know, you're seeing the same psychological bed that is being made where we label people who disagree, or we say, because I don't want to use the pronouns, I'm an enemy, I gotta go, I'm dangerous, I'm offensive, you're bad. Those terms are adjectives that lead to genocide. Like, that's the reality. Because what happens?
Well, that's why it's so dangerous right now to have a polarized government. When you only have two parties and each party is at each other's throat, it's only a matter of time before one of those political parties seizes power and decides that they don't want to deal with the other side anymore. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
we saw it. We've seen that. We've seen that several times in recent history where a political party will get behind a movement, and then that movement can do no wrong. You know,
Right.
can do absolutely no wrong. And
Right.
you're sitting there as just like a regular citizen on the sideline. You're
Right.
like, hey man, like kind of everybody here is wrong. And if you try to tell everybody that like, hey, I don't necessarily agree with you, and I don't agree with you, but and both you guys are not conducting yourselves, correctly as citizens of the United States.
Right.
You know, you're an outsider now.
Right.
If you don't join one of these polarized parties or go back. Trulia brought up a really good. Truly, Tyler. Yeah, my bad. It kind of goes back to the agenda of destroying the family dynamic. If everyone is confused, it will stay broken. 100%. We talked about the importance of the standard. You call it the standard family unit, the family dynamic or whatever, a mother, a father, and children. And we talked about it several shows ago that if you go back 50 years ago, the reason why a lot of the people from that era are way more successful, and even black people who were segregated at that time, those people who have grown up 50s and 60s and 70s are more successful than the younger generations today. So on both sides of the fence is because of the family unit. Because no matter what was going on, they had a family unit. They had a father that went out and provided, and a mother that stayed home and took care and actually nurtured and raised children, as opposed to shoving phones in their hands, sending them off to daycare, or younger adults having 4 or 5 children, but it's a single parent because the father's not in the picture, or the mother's gone, doesn't want to take care of them, or however the situation folds now. It wasn't unusual for me during my days of riding the streets to run into a 22-year-old girl on the West Bank of New Orleans, and she's on her 4th or 5th child already, but there's no dad in the picture. There's barely she's barely in the picture. So why do we want to destroy this family unit that has survived for thousands of years and has built empires? We want to destroy it because we don't feel like it's necessary anymore, because we feel a certain way. It's absolutely ridiculous. The proof is in the print.
Right.
The proof is in the print. You look all throughout history, the most successful people mostly come from a whole household, your standard family unit. Not to say that people who don't can't succeed. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that statistically, you have a much better shot in life if you have a mother and a father in your life. One is nurturing you, one is guiding you and teaching you how to be an adult. That's
right.
Because honestly, and women are not going to like this, the world was built by men who were nurtured by their mothers and shown how to be men by their fathers.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the key that we have to understand is the balance. I mean, where's the balance? Where's the standard? Where's the foundation? And I think that if there is no foundation, your house is built on sand. You know what I mean? And so every wind and every storm that comes will blow that house down. I mean, that's the reality. And whether we like to accept it, because the reality is there's things that I have to learn to accept that I may not like. But I have to accept the fact that this is necessary in order for us to grow. And I think having these conversations is necessary. I think that we need to address the fact that, you know what, maybe we're wrong. In whatever side you stand on, is it possible that there's something you're getting wrong? Is it possible that you're approaching something wrong? Is it possible that you don't understand something? Is that possible? I think one of the things that hurts us most, and on both sides, you ready for this, is pride. I think there is such a high level of ego and pride on both sides that we're unyielding and unwilling to even say anything even consider anything other than what we think. I think both are needed. Women and women today who enjoy our biological traits are frowned upon by society these days. Well, yeah, I mean, the reality is that you have to understand something, is that the goal at the end of the day, whether you want to like it, accept it, agree with it or not, the goal is control. Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is control. And it's on both sides. Whether you're a progressive, whether you're a conservative, the goal is control. We want to control society in whichever way that we want to control it. I mean, so, and people might think, oh, that's some old conspiracy and blah, blah, blah. No, it's not. People, society, governments and authorities and elitists and all that kind of stuff have been doing this for centuries. They have been manipulating people's ideas, concepts, beliefs, and emotions for the purpose of controlling society. For example, you believe that society should be free flowing and you should be able to be whatever you want to be and identify however you want to be, right? So in concept, you would think that sounds like absolutely freedom until someone says, I don't think that.
Yeah.
And just like
Well,
that,
you said it. They've been doing this for generations, and we've talked about this before. Racism. Well, we talk about racism. Racism is a poor people's problem.
right,
Sexism is also a poor people's problem. All these isms, all these divisional terms that we use to basically segregate ourselves depending on what our belief system, our skin color, and our gender, they're all poor people problems. Okay?
mm-hmm.
Rich people don't care. They don't care. That's why it's so easy to manipulate the masses, because
Right.
when we're sitting here, the whole reason we have this show is so we can just talk about stuff without people ripping each other's throats out. Just talk. I would love to bring somebody that has a completely opposing view and just talk on the show. Like, hey man, how
Right.
did you arrive at your conclusion? Like, show me what you've been reading. Why do you believe this certain thing? I want to know. Genuinely, I want to know. I'm not going to sit here and judge you. I don't care, man.
Right.
I like to learn, and I think one of the most interesting things with learning is learning how people become the people that they are. Like, what road did you take to believe
Right.
this belief system?
Right.
To have this ideology and stuff like that.
Yeah. How did you arrive at this point? I think that's important. And one thing that really hurts our society is when we say something like, if I voice my opinion on how I arrived at this point or how I feel about a thing, and then you tell me you can't say that, that's a problem.
Yeah, I think people really take disagreement.
Hey.
Like if you disagree, like you're a villain, like you dislike every single, like you can disagree with one part of an argument nowadays, and then in turn you automatically disagree with every single thing that they're going to say.
Right. Throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly. But yeah, and then going back to the breaking down family household thing, I definitely agree with like that being a form of control. Like, because even people like to think confusion isn't a form of control. I disagree. I really do think confusion definitely is a form of control. Like people say, like when you want to confuse the household, that's like government tactics, and I think so. Like like them wanting to strip like the man out of the family equation. Making the mother like the new in the household. I think that's definitely control. It makes it easier for mothers nowadays to depend on the government for certain things. I think all that is it all stems down to control.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, bro, absolutely. I mean, we know that the welfare system was designed to incentivize a single parent household. I mean, it's government dependency. At the end of the day, it's all government dependency. It's all, I will take care of it. Give me the keys and I'll take care of it. What is your social disposition? I got you. I'll take care of it. What is your financial disposition? I got you. I'll take care of it. Oh, those people were mean to you? I got you. I'll take care of it. At the end of the day, it all boils down to it's a means of control. And we need to get away from looking to the government and everybody else to try to fix the problem. And we need to look at each other as human beings and say, okay, how can we make this world a better place together? How can we understand each other better? How can we have this conversation? How can we, and here's the thing, when we, and like I said, we kind of got away from this, but here's the thing. If I say something out of ignorance, you can't kill me for it. Like, if I use a term because I just don't know, or if I use a terminology that I've been using my whole life, or if I look at it from a perspective of, this is how I speak, and you're telling me that, oh no, you're wrong, you can't say that. What? How am I supposed to communicate with you if how am I supposed to even understand you? If my whole life I've been saying this, and now you're telling me that I can't say it. Now you're telling me that you shouldn't say it. Now you're telling me that if I say this, I'm wrong. And it's like, wait a minute. I'm trying to understand. This is just the way that I speak or I talk. Or if you're telling me something that, like, regardless of whether I agree with you or not, you can't control this.
Mm-hmm.
This is mine. This is my mouth. And I've always found it funny how we have seen this. And unfortunately, I do see it more in recent years. I see it more coming from the left to the right, or progressive to the conservative. Basically that I can say whatever I want, but you can't say what you want.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, has it been the other way around in the past? Absolutely. But in recent years, the current conversation is oftentimes it's the modern liberal, neoliberal, progressive kind of fringe movement that is saying, you know, we can say whatever we want, we can do whatever we want, but you as a conservative, if you even think against this, you are wrong, and you can't say that. And matter of fact, we need to put legislation to make sure that you don't say this. Because why? Not because I disagree, but because it's offensive. And when we start saying this is offensive, this is offensive, well, now you're in a you're think about it. You look at what Stalin killed like 50 million people because they disagreed and said stuff he ain't like.
Hmm.
You look at in North Korea, do you know that you can be penalized and thrown in prison if you say anything against the royal family?
Yeah.
China's the same way. If they find out that you posted anything that is negative or disagree with a policy or anything of the state, guess what? You are now public enemy number one. They take your social credit drops. They take money out of your account if you jaywalk. They know when you jaywalk and take money out of your account. Think about that. But see, this is where it begins. It begins with controlling people's mouths. If I tell you you can't say that, then it turns to not only can you not say that, you can't do that. You can't be that. You can't walk that way. And here's the thing with what I say, anybody who is in support of some of the other movements, I say, look, I'm all for it. Let's social justice, cool, activism, yeah, make the world a better place. I'm all for it. But don't be surprised if you begin to step into that world of cancel culture to where you turn around and they begin to cancel you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the pendulum will always swing, and it's a cycle. You know, countries at war still negotiate and have conversations. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. The world is at war right now. Like me and Alex talk about this all the time. The world is at war right now. Almost every nation across the water is in some form of global conflict that is literally shaping the world of the future. And we are here in America. We are crumbling infrastructure, financially, socio-economic. We are crumbling as Americans in America. And yet we are here having these conversations about whether you should be able to say pronouns or not.
Yeah.
Like, we're really having this argument. It's like, listen, I understand there are people with different issues, but there are issues that we're dealing with on a grander scale here's the thing, and this is why I say a lot of these movements and social movements, once again, fight for your right, fight for your freedom, fight for your lifestyle, do what you got to do. But understand this, don't be caught up and swept up in this, in a distraction. Don't be so caught up in, while we're fighting for these particular rights, here's the thing. We could fight for all of these different social rights and don't even realize that we're losing our natural rights. We can be so caught up, like I said something the other day, that we get in these situations where we get so caught up in we care so much, and we devote so much energy to things that matter so little. I mean, think of it, at the end of the day, it really does not matter that much. The question becomes, how are we going to better society? Because right now, our economy is failing. Our infrastructure is failing. Mm-hmm. Our public education system is failing. There's war on the horizon. We are losing the U.S. And think about it, they just sued the cryptocurrencies and all that stuff, so now they're not using the U.S. dollar anymore. I mean, there are some issues we got going on that are far greater and deeper than anything that we got that we're dealing with. And the fact that we are focusing all of our energy on things like Trump getting arraigned and pronouns, and like I said, it goes back to what a guy said years ago. I read, he said, Americans have the privilege of caring about things that don't matter.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying
100%,
to value
100%. As a first world country, man, we have a lot of we are in control of our destiny, and we create a lot of the problems that we have today. A lot of the problems that we have, they shouldn't even exist, because there are people in countries that wish that they could sit there and relax enough to worry about the shit that's in our news. You know, if you watch foreign news, like I watch a lot of foreign news when I'm over here. I watch like BBC, Al Jazeera and stuff like that. Dude, mm-hmm. Just the way they talk about American news, it's like, it was such disdain. Like, We can't even believe that these people care about this stuff. You know, in other news, there was a suicide bombing in the middle of,
Right,
Kandahar
and
today, where
150 people
500.
got killed, and yeah,
Yeah,
you
and,
know,
o- and
yeah,
and over there in the U.S., we're worried about like labeling the fucking bathrooms, or how much ice cream did Trump eat? Um,
right,
and it's laughable. And at a certain point, like there's going to be a correction. What is the correction going to look like? I have no idea. I think
hey,
you have the crazies out there want to have like a civil war and stuff like that. And I can tell you, as a veteran, like that's just not a good idea. I don't want to do
right,
that. Because we're not going to have air conditioning or internet, and that's going to be
right,
miserable. I can
right,
tell you 100% it's going to be miserable.
right,
But all that other crap aside, it's just, we're just living in society that it's fake. It's such a fake society that we have right now. But that's really all I got, man. It's getting late for me. I gotta go to
yeah,
bed.
yeah, 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 yeah. We gotta jump off, and we'll continue the conversation. We love to have you guys. I appreciate you, Michael, for coming on,
Yeah,
man,
thanks for coming on, man.
giving your thoughts, dog.
Yeah, man.
Yeah,
I told
Yeah,
you,
man.
I plan on
Hey,
coming.
once again, go ahead. What you say, bro?
Oh no, I said I plan on coming back on here. I'm just glad I was able to make it.
Yeah,
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 hell
yeah.
yeah,
And
man.
once again, for anybody who's jumping on, man, this Who Is Micah. He's got his brand. Go check him out at Who Is Micah. Obviously, it's your man, Reach the Poll. We're going to continue this conversation. There's so much more to unpack. We didn't even get deep into the speech part. We were so talking about the cultural things, but at the end of the day, that's just how it goes. These are the conversations that need to be had. Check us out next week. Real Talking Points, Zero Foxtrot, Reach the Poet. Hey, peace.
Oh.